How many goblins could a goblin gob if a goblin could gob goblins?
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMUDSTA to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is another multi-zone matchup with Miguel playing Sigarda. He keeps 2 plains, 2 forests, Krosan Verge, Cavalry Pegasus, and a Selesnya Signet. Max is playing his Gavi deck, keeping Azorius Signet, Gift of Estates, Talisman of Progress, Cyclonic Rift, Talisman of Conviction, Desert of the True, and a Reliquary Tower. New to the channel is Olivier playing his Otrimi deck, keeping a Command Tower, Fertilid, Gaze of Granite, Exotic Orchard, Rampant Growth, Gem Raiser, and Auspicious Starrix. Alexandre is playing Syr Gwyn, keeping a Mountain, a Plains, a Swamp, Hot Soup, Rogue's Gloves, D-Spark, and Response and Resurgence. Alexandre wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays a Plains for turn and casts a turn 1 Colossus Hammer. Miguel plays a Forest. Maxime plays a tapped Desert of the True and passes turn. Olivier plays a Command Tower. Alexandre plays a Mountain and then pays 2 for an Inspiring Veteran. Miguel plays a Plains and casts a Selesnya Signet. Max plays a Reliquary Tower and he casts a Mana Rock as well, playing out Talisman of Conviction. Olivier plays a Llanowar Wastes and goes and casts Rampant Growth to find an island and passes turn. Alexandre plays a Swamp and casts Rogue's Gloves. Moving to combat, he swings his Knight at Olivier for 2. Miguel plays a Forest and then casts his own commander, Sigarda, Champion of Light. Max plays a Scalding Tarn and then casts Azorius Signet. He's able to cast another Mana Rock with the Talisman of Progress, and then cracks the Tarn, losing 1 to go and find a Sacred Foundry, and has it come in, shocking him. He then casts Hoofprints of the Stag and passes. Olivier plays a land for turn and casts a Fertilid. Alexandre equips the Rogue's Gloves to his Knight and moves to combat. He swings at Maxime for 2 this time and gets to draw a card thanks to the equipment. He then casts a Soul Ring and passes. Miguel plays a land and he casts a Cavalry Pegasus. He then moves to swing Sigarda at Maxime, dealing 4 commander damage. Max draws for turn and puts a counter onto his Hoofprints. He then casts Gift of Estates, choosing Olivier, who controls more lands than he does. He goes and finds 3 Plains cards, revealing Irrigated Farmland, Hollowed Fountain, and a Rogran Triome. He then shocks in the Hollowed Fountain and taps out to cast his commander, Gavi, Nest Warden. He then cycles Censor as his free cycle for turn, and draws a card and makes a cat token, and passes. Olivier plays a Temple of the False God as his 5th land, and he taps out to cast an Auspicious Starrix onto the Fertilid. He mutates it, and doing so exiles the top card of his library. Since it's a permanent, he gets to put it onto the battlefield. Alexandre wants to join the commander party and casts Syr Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. Using her static ability, he equips her with the Colossus Hammer for free, giving her +10/+10. Moving to combat, he swings the Knight at Miguel, who takes the hit. Alexandre gets to draw 2 cards, 1 from the attack, and 1 from the equipment connecting. Miguel plays a tap land for turn, and passes. Max casts Divine Visitation, and then gets to free cycle his Secluded Step. He's supposed to make a cat token, but instead gets to make a 4/4 Flying Angel with Vigilance. Deciding he needs to keep some blockers back, he doesn't do anything, and passes. Olivier plays a land for turn, and then mutates Gem Raiser onto the Auspicious Starrix Fertilid stack. Upon resolution, he destroys the Colossus Hammer, and then exiles his top 2 cards. He hits a Reclamation Sage, which enters and destroys Divine Visitation, and also an Endless Sands. He then mutates his commander Otrimi the Ever-Playful onto the stack, which destroys one of Maxim's mana rocks, and then exiles 3 lands off the top, all of which come into play. With his explosive turn over, he then passes turn. Alexandre plays a Sword of Vengeance, and free equips it onto his commander. He then casts Hot Soup, equipping it onto his other knight. Moving to combat, he swings Syr Gwyn and the Inspiring Veteran at max, getting to draw 3 cards total once they connect. With nothing else, Alex moves to the end of his turn and discards down to hand size. Miguel plays a land for turn and casts a Yavimaya Elder. He moves to combat and swings Sigarda at Olivier, which triggers her Coven ability. He gets to look 5 cards deep and keeps an Odric Outrider and puts it to hand. Olivier then takes the damage, and Miguel goes to cast the Outrider in his second main phase. At the end of turn, Maxime casts Mystical Tutor and goes to find a Winds of Abandon, putting it on top. Maxime draws for turn, and then free cycles a card to make himself another cat token. He plays a land for turn, and then casts an overloaded Winds of Abandon. In response, Olivier uses Endless Sands to put away his stack, but in response, Alexandre casts a Despark on the stack of creatures. The Winds of Abandon then resolve, and for each creature his opponents control, they get exiled and then get to go and find him a tapped basic, putting him into play. Moving to combat, he swings a cat and his commander Olivier, and an angel token at Alexandre. Olivier plays 7 mana for an Emergent Ultimatum. He finds an elusive Tormentor, Sea Dasher Octopus, and Beast Whisperer. He picks Miguel to choose from the 3, of which Miguel chooses Beast Whisperer to be shuffled back in. Olivier then gets to cast the elusive Tormentor and Sea Dasher Octopus for free. Alexandre recasts his commander and equips the stack of equipment back onto her. He moves to combat and swings her at Olivier for 7 and gets to draw 2 cards, one from attacking and one for connecting. He then plays a Tournament Grounds and passes. Miguel plays a land for turn and casts a Perimeter Sergeant and then recasts his commander. He passes to Max, who casts an Enlightened Tutor and goes to find an Afara to put on top. Maxime draws Afara and casts her. He then pays 3 to remove a counter from the Hoofprints and makes a Pegasus and puts a delayed Afara trigger into the world. He then moves to combat and swings his Angel token at Alexandre for 4. At the end of Maxime's turn, Olivier activates his Blighted Woodlands, sacrificing it to find 2 basics to put to field. Olivier moves to his turn, and Maxime gets to draw a card thanks to Afara. Olivier moves to combat and swings his Octopus at Max, who agrees not to block and take the hit. Olivier then draws with the trigger, and once that's done, activates the Tormentor to discard a card and transform it into a cloud of smoke. How spooky! He then mutates a Parcel Beast onto the smoke, making a beast-shaped cloud of hexproof unblockable smoke or something? I don't know. He then casts a Khazar Ruthless Stalker and finds the partner, Ukima Stalking Shadow. With nothing else, he passes. Alexandre plays a Rogue's Passage for turn and goes to cast a Knight's Charge. He moves to combat, swinging 7 at Max, who has to take it. He draws a card and loses 1 life from Syr Gwyn's trigger like he has been before, and then the Knight's Charge strains Max for 1, gaining Alexandre that 1 he just lost. In his second main phase, Alexandre then casts a Heartseeker and equips it onto Syr Gwyn for free. Miguel plays a land and passes. Max plays a land for turn, and he fondles his flyers, considering the fight options, and then swings them at Alexandre. With nothing else, he passes to Olivier, who cracks the Myriad Landscape and goes to find some matching basics. Olivier activates the Parcel Beast and gets to put the top card of his library to hand since it's not a land. He then casts a Progenitor Mimic and targets his Smoke Beast. He then plays a Simic Growth Chamber, bouncing a land back to his hand, and follows up by casting Ukama, Kazur's better half, and then passing turn. At the end of turn, Alexandre taps Syr Gwyn to unattach the Heartseeker and destroys Gavi. Alexandre re-equips Heartseeker and moves to combat. He swings Syr Gwyn at Maxim again, this time for 9. He draws from the trigger, but Maxim has a response. Before being dealt damage, Max overloads a Cyclonic Rift to bounce his opponent's boards back to hand. In response, Olivier puts the Mimic under the Endless Sands, and the board then gets bounced. Alexandre then recasts his Soul Ring, followed by Rogue's Clubs, Hot Soup, Sword of Vengeance, and Knight's Charge. He then plays a land for turn, and discards down to hand size. Miguel goes for a super combo, casting the Selesnya Signet, the Sergeant, and Sigarda, which is so many S cards. Maxim untaps, and with an unaffected board state, he's out for vengeance. He casts a Mirror Entity and moves to combat. He swings his 3 creatures at Alexandre, and then makes his team into 6/6s. Alex has no choice but to take the 18, and with nothing else, Max passes. Olivier casts a Gaze of Granite where X is 3. He wipes the majority of the board, and then recasts the Elusive Tormentor. He then plays a Swamp for turn, and then transforms the Tormentor after discarding a card back into the Spooky Mist, and passes. Alex recasts his commander, this time from hand, and passes. Miguel plays a Doomed Traveler, and then casts Late for Dinner. He brings back the Sergeant, and then passes. Maxim casts a Chasm Skulker in his main phase, and then an Aven Wingguard, and passes to Olivier. At the end of turn, Olivier activates the Endless Sands, putting the Mimic back into time, which comes in as a copy of the Skulker. Olivier makes a copy of the Skulker on his upkeep, and puts a counter onto each of them as he draws. He then mutates a Glowstone Recluse onto the smoke, making it into a smoky spider. He then moves to combat, and swings forward Alexandre with a Spider Mist, who in response casts a Boros Charm and targets Olivier. The charm then resolves, dealing 4, and before moving to damage, Olivier flashes out a Sea Dasher Octopus onto the mist. Since octopuses and spiders each have 8 legs, I guess this is okay? He then gets 2 counters onto the Growing Abomination, and once it connects, draws from the damage trigger. He then recasts Ukama and passes to Miguel. Miguel moves to combat with his squad, and with the Coven trigger, gets to reveal a Containment Priest from Sigarda. Before blocks, Olivier flashes in an Illusionary Ambusher, and blocks the 2 humans with the Ambusher and Ukama. The creatures trade, and Olivier gets to draw from the damage dealt to the Ambusher, and then puts 5 cards to hand, and 5 counters onto his squids. He then deals 2 from Ukama to Miguel, and gains 2 life. The Doomed Traveler then dies and turns into a Spirit Token, and Miguel then casts a Containment Priest, and passes. Maxim pays the 7 to recast Gavi in his main phase, and now has Devotion online. Moving to combat, he hits Olivier for 2 in the air. He then cycles a Vizier of Tumbling Sands, which has Olivier responding by cycling his Migratory Path, and draws a card, and buffing his squids again. Olivier untaps and draws for turn, having made another squid thanks to the Progenitor Mimic. He then casts a Mythos of Brokos, finding a Dirge Bat, and puts it into the graveyard, and then puts it back to hand as well as Ukima. He then mutates the bat onto the Progenitor Mimic Squid stack, which targets the Wind Guide with the Destroy trigger. And then mutates the Parcel Beast onto the new squid. Moving to combat, he swings the Octo Smoke at Miguel and the Bat Squid at Max. He draws off the Octo Smoke, and Max is taken out with the Bat Squid. Miguel moves to combat, and in response, Olivier casts a Putrefy on Sigarda. We then move to a second main phase, and Miguel then recasts her, and then casts You Find a Cursed Idol, and goes into the Lost Mines of Phandelver. Olivier in good fashion casts a Villainous Wealth where X is 20, to which Miguel responds by saying Ok c'est bon, and the game is concluded in the most Quebec way. Game review time. So it was cool to see another Mutate deck, and although Otrimi only runs 3 of the colors instead of the 5 like my Ramos deck does, I do like some of the card inclusions from Olivier. I think Ukima is actually pretty spicy for this, and it was great to see the Progenitor Mimic making tons of those extra Mutate stacks over and over again. Alexandre was playing a pretty sweet Syr Gwyn deck, and I'm always excited to see any deck that for any reason will run Hot Soup. It is super good evasion equipment, and it was just a lot of fun to see. Miguel had built his Sigarda Champion of Light deck as Humans Tribal, but unfortunately didn't seem to get very far, and it wasn't doing a ton of damage this time around. We did get to see her Coven ability trigger once or twice, but beyond that, it didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Max's Gavi deck still continues to impress me and shows just how well it can actually do as long as it's not built or played by me. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.